question I wanted to get to when I said if you give me 5 minutes to question you. So your interpretation is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to straw man you, you say that it's not an illness, transgenderism is not an illness, if you could function perfectly acceptable in society. That's what you said, correct?
Without severe gender dysphoria, yeah.
Okay, so if I'm schizophrenic and I could function perfectly acceptably in society, I don't have an illness?
Schizophrenic is it's considered different. Hold on, let me check.
Yeah, it's different, right? Because whether or not something's an illness, it doesn't require on how well you could manage it. Well, you could exist in society as a perfectly normal person.
It specifically does.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Mental illnesses
That's bullshit.
Okay.
Again, we're not talking about mental illness specifically. We're talking about whether or not something's an illness. Therefore, I could be diabetic, manage my diabetes even without medical intervention, and still function in society properly. That doesn't mean I don't have an illness.
What is the disorder?
The disorder is that my brain is in the wrong body.
Okay, so what is the solution for that?
Put my brain in a body that more aligns with what my brain is.
Okay, you just stated exactly that. Okay, I love you. You are the most trans-positive conservative I've ever argued with. So that is exactly
where have I ever showed that I'm trans-negative?
What you should do is you need to make the body match what the brain says. So that's why we have things like hormone replacement therapy, sex reassignment surgery. It's to make the body match what the brain is experiencing. So what you just said is
right. But so again, like, where is this argument? Because I say that, and this is the exact argument that you're actually making my argument for me. So the reason that in addition to all the reasons you stated why banning these books is wrong, the fundamental reason other than that is that it's true. That if we're going to say that people require medical interventions to get into the body that they relate as, that's a medical issue. That's a disorder or illness. If we remove that and we say no,
Rob, I agree with you.
Okay,
people that require. Thanks, Troy.
Very energetic.
Rob, why do you hate science so much, Rob?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Why do you hate science so much, Rob?
Why do I hate science? I don't hate science. I hate the politicization of science, right? I hate semantic.
How can you tell if it's been politicized or not?
Well, I hate this. Sorry, just a little mush mouth there. But I think you're asking me why I hate science. I don't hate science.
No. I'm asking you, how do you know if some science is political or not? Rather than just like, because it sounds like you sound like there's some science you don't like. How do you know that it's been a politically influenced position?
I know this isn't good form, and I'll answer the question, but let me respond with a question initially. Why do you trust anything science says, even if it violates common sense?
I don't believe in common sense. I epistemically reject that assertion because so many things have been granted to us via quote unquote common sense that have been completely wrong.
So then you would say if a majority of scientists say something, it's proof, and you can't disagree with it with common sense facts because you're not a scientist, correct?
So science is a process. It's not like a declaration of truth. Right? Science is like, this is what we have the evidence to currently do. That can change going forward.
But particular scientific organizations don't necessarily give the gospel on something. We have to make sure that their claims stand up to scrutiny, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, for example, let's just narrow down. Do you think trans women are women?
I mean, this question, I'm going to ask how you define trans women and women, and then our answers are going to be given to us based on our definitions, right?
Well, that's just it. So you're disagreeing with science because you're giving a different definition than the definition that's colloquially accepted.
First of all, I never said. I don't know. I think the statement "trans women are women" is stupid and reductive. I don't know why the fuck anybody would ever say that.
Because
but I disagree with that statement for probably far different reasons than you do. So don't pretend. I don't want you to think that I agree with you.
No. Okay. I would be ashamed if you agreed with me on it. Of course, I know that you're going to take the attempted woke principle and violate scientific standards. Understanding what is a man.
Why do you ascribe so much bad faith to me? It's like you don't know who I am or what I talk about. Like,
but wait a minute,
why do you
just said like that. Come on, spare me the victimhood routine of your destiny. Why do you hate science? Why do you disagree with science? Why are you ascribing bad faith to me?
Wait. No. Well, because when you're making a claim, you're making a claim that is very squarely standing in the opposition of what the majority of psychologists around the world right now believe.
I'm making a claim that's squarely standing in opposition to the APA and the World Health Organization. That's
okay. Just like what are the scientific organizations?
The fact that APA does all the stuff for the psychology, it does take time. And right now, according to the DSM-5, according to that, it's gender dysphoria more than for the transgender. Yeah, that's a different definition now from 4 to 5. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so I follow the direction that the science is moving. It's possible to change it.
But at the same time, we still learn as psychologists until we can determine everything, to determine that as transgender people are a mental disorder.
What do you mean to determine? What do you mean by that?
We have to do a ton of tests.
What kind of tests?
And a lot of talking. A lot of talking, mostly.
What kind of tests? What are you talking about?
Mostly talking and mental awareness tests. And then there's also, of course, there's like genital mutilation tests that we got to talk to them about. Wait.
I just want to be clear. When you say you're studying psychology, are you a year 1 undergrad? What?
No, I'm year 4.
Okay, I don't know what
I'm writing a dissertation as well.
But like you're writing a dissertation for your undergrad?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know where you go to school or whatever, but like everything you're saying betrays like how a lot of these tests are done in terms of figuring out like how somebody has like a mental illness.
And that's what we have to do.
You're standing against like what the field is, right? So like you have conversations with people, you try to figure out if like we have diagnostic criteria for having certain types of mental illnesses, for mental disorders, to see if they negatively impact their life to such an extent that like medical intervention or some other intervention is necessary. Everything that you're saying right now about like needing to do tests or whatever, I don't know if you're vaguely alluding to like some sort of neurological tests or like some type of...
Yeah, they're mostly neurological tests. There is, of course, the...
Okay, when you say neurological test, what do you mean by that? When you say neurological test?
Mostly the fact of us just talking to them purely and just trying to figure out exactly everything.
Yeah, so
that makes sense. I'm trying to get as best as I can.
Okay. Also, it's very strange to me that you're year 4 and you have said I'm sorry. Liz is literally just ad homs right now. I'm sorry. You said psychiatry over and over and over again as like not being a science or whatever. Like psychiatrists literally go to med school.
I never said that.
Oh wait, was somebody else saying that?
That was me. It's not like a full. I guess the way I said it.
I'm a psychologist. Way big difference. Psychologist is just mentally talking.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not a pure science.
Psychiatry is like medical and all that stuff. I'm going to law school. I'm stupid for medical school.
Okay, why are you guys learning stuff that stands in opposition to what's in the DSM-5 and statements that the APA are making right now?
Because that's what they still teach.
In your school, but why would they teach that?
I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not a teacher.
Well, yeah, but do you understand that it sounds...
Because they're interested in science as opposed to politics. That's probably why they would teach that.
Rob, why is the current definition any more political than whatever definition you're pushing? Because you're uncomfortable with the existence of trans people. Can you tell me why, Rob?
Yeah, sure. So if you give me a second. So the argument is whether you want to semantically call it illness, disorder, or something like that. Do you agree with Tiffany's explanation that there's something to do with variance in the brain that shows that the brain's in some sort of wrong body?
There is like some very preliminary science
I can actually physically
right now.
think about that, yes.
There is some early preliminary science that seems to indicate that, but I mean, obviously, like neurology is a field in terms of brain scans and everything is like very, very,
if the
like,
preliminary studies are saying that we don't have evidence to the contrary, then it would show that regardless of what you semantically want to call this, that it is an illness, a disorder, or something. When you biologically identify as something that your body's not physically manifesting, that is an illness, a disorder, or something like that. Now, the APA could say, well, it's not an illness for whatever reasons that they want to say it, but it's quite clearly.
I know you like to pivot to a million things. Let's just narrowly focus on this one back and forth. Okay,
let's do it.
What is the harm in calling gender dysphoria an illness, but like a trans, like just being trans, like not calling that an illness?
Let me and Destiny talk for a minute.
Let me talk. Use illness much money.
Let me talk to Destiny for a second about that. You want to know what the harm is, Destiny? Amazon's banning books based on that rationale. That's the harm.
No, Amazon is not banning books based on a recommendation from the APA.
No. It's using those sorts of arguments as an excuse. Oh, well, the APA doesn't think it's an illness. Therefore, it's harmful for books to be out there saying that it's some form of illness. That's what's happening. You know it. That's the actual harm.
I just disagree. I don't think that's...
Well, you disagree, but you're wrong. You don't have a reason for your disagreement.
Okay, well, firstly, you can't call me wrong based on your unfounded conjecture.
No, then why is it? So wait, then what is the rationale? So if you're saying that Amazon's just arbitrarily...
have a rationale... I can explain it to you.
Okay, sure.
Well, here, I'm curious. What do you think I'll say?
I think you'll...
Why do you think I'm going to tell you why Amazon banned books?
Because they can and they think it would be bad for their sales.
Yes, that's why. The problem is we have an insane fucking cancel culture where if you don't align 100% ideologically with somebody, yes.
Why do we have that cancel culture? You're almost there, Destiny. Why do we have that cancel culture? Why do we have it? You're almost there.
There might be a variety of reasons. I think it's because for the first time, people feel like they can enact justice and vengeance on people using social media to an otherwise powerless
but you can only do that if you have some sort of grounding to be able to do it.
No,
if the APA was out there calling this an illness, do you think it would be as effective?
The woke mob on fucking Twitter gives a fuck if they have a scientific backing for any of the fucking
No,
claims
but it has more credibility
to
allow corporate change if it does.
Wait, but I'm curious,
totally
Rob. Do you know that Destiny was sort of canceled by the mob? To some
I don't think he.
I don't know or give a shit. Yeah, of course I don't. What would I care?
Okay, I don't know.
No, it's irrelevant to the conversation. Sucks if you got canceled too. I've been on the I'm not even big enough to get canceled. I'm off the radar.
But you were coming at him sort of like he was like part of that or like back.
I'm not in favor of the cancel.
No, I didn't accuse it. I never accused
the cancel mob. The idea that the cancel mob is like going online with these well-founded scientific opinions in order to like quote unquote cancel people is ridiculous. Like a lot of this stuff is like, for instance, a lot of the concepts of like behind trigger warnings are not scientific. These aren't rooted in anything that any psychological study has shown or any statements that the APA has. And in fact, there's been research to the opposite that shows that like excessive trigger warnings can be an unhealthy form of accommodation that actually inhibits people's ability to function.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with all that, but you're denying reality if you don't think that we have medical experts that say actually there's truth to what these cancel culture people are saying, that doesn't involve, that doesn't help them achieve the power to cancel the things that they want. You're just wrong if you're saying...
I don't agree that academics in general are trying to quote unquote cancel people.
But that's not the same
goes
question.
to academia to get their cancel opinions.
That's not the same question. Their motivations are relevant. You said, what is the harm of them saying this? And I said, the harm is it's used to cancel, in part to cancel things that disagree with it. Their motivation's irrelevant to whether or not it's being used.
Do you think that we should get rid of all forms of science? Do you think that we should get rid of all forms of science that people could weaponize against each other?
No, I didn't. Did I say get rid of the science? Like, you're just strawmanning me. I didn't say that.
I'm not strawmanning you.
Show me where I remotely said we should get rid of all forms of science that could lead to criticism and cancel.
You said, well, okay.
I didn't say that. Even close to it.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I asked you what the harm was, the APA's definitions, because the APA, from my understanding of how they classify things, the APA's define things the way they are because they feel like it's a more accurate representation of defining what a mental illness is. Mm-hmm. And I asked you what the harm for that was, and you said, well, that's harmful because people are taking these definitions and they're running to social media to cancel people over
That's right.
Amazon. So my question is when scientific organizations are like classifying illnesses or making these declarations on things, do you think that like the number one priority of concern should be like, well, somebody might get canceled if we have this definition? Do you think that's like a concern that they should be prioritizing when it comes to how they classify things?
No, I never said that. No, I don't think that.
Okay, then do you think that the APA's current classification of the separation of dysphoria and the experience of being a trans person, do you think that that is bad then? Do you know why they do that? Do you think they might have a good standing or a rationale for separating these things out?
They theoretically could, but I would say that the overwhelming preponderance of evidence suggests they're doing it because they are in academia that is incredibly woke and has a reason to push this cancel culture bullshit.
Well, I don't know if I can quote unquote convince you out of that, but the rationale is that it gives us a better understanding, like our concepts and our understandings of gender, whether we talk about like gender identity or expression, so your internal feelings, your external presentation, and then how we identify as a gender, like all of these concepts are rapidly evolving. And the way that people experiencing these things have also become rapidly like nuanced and more complicatedly analyzed. As that happens, it seems to me that it would logically follow that we're probably going to expand or change our understandings of certain things that we used to call mental illnesses or separate things that we used to group together. So like being trans and having dysphoria, similar to how we used to view being a gay person as being a disorder. And now we no longer view that as being a disorder.
Well, that's not, I don't disagree with that. That's absolutely true that the science could change and that we should always be updating it. That's absolutely true. The problem is the way that science is being explained doesn't pass the smell test for what we understand with common sense. And it doesn't even, like if you give me 5 minutes to question you, it doesn't even pass your own justification.
Okay, if you want, you can spend 5 minutes questioning me. I'd love to do that. However, just a quick question first. When you say smell test common sense, these are like not scientifically valid appeals.
That's true.
Right? Like I don't know what.
That's true.
So I don't know what I'm supposed to do when somebody tells me, well, this doesn't pass my common sense.
Well, then what we'll do is we'll see if it passes your test for being strategic, if it being intellectual consistent. How about that? Instead of smell test. Fair enough?
Sure.
Okay, so you would say that a trans person that doesn't have gender dysphoria isn't experiencing any sort of illness or disorder or anything like that. Colloquially, whatever we would call is synonymous with disorder, illness, something like that. Fair enough? Is that a fair statement?
Wait, can you restate that again? Sorry, just so.
Yeah. Like you would say someone that's transgender but isn't experiencing gender dysphoria is not experiencing an illness, a disorder, or any synonym with those terms, correct?
But not any APA like define like mental disorder.
Well, but wait a minute. That's an unrelenting pill to authority. Like, why is it that only the APA that we should accept? Like, as human beings, we should be able to determine whether or not we're questioning whether or not the APA definition is acceptable. So appealing to them as the authority on whether or not it's acceptable seems to not be a fair supposition, correct? My supposition is that based on your own logic...
You just asked me a question. Before you volunteer your answer, let me answer you. Okay, so why do we accept the APA's definition? Because I feel like it is important in society that we have central bodies that we appeal to when it comes to broadly understanding like these definitions related to our health. Because without that, it feels as though we will descend into chaos where everybody is using their own unique definitions or their own unique understandings of mental illness. I think it's probably better that we have a central body of knowledge that we appeal to because it gives us a more consistent understanding of the experience that everybody has in society and gives us the ability to diagnose and treat and accommodate people better.
Okay, so if the APA comes out and says, so fairness, if the APA comes out and says being gay is a mental illness, you'll say fair enough. We have to accept that, correct?
Yeah, that's where the research goes. Yeah, sure.
It doesn't matter if that's where the research goes, because you're saying we can't interrogate the research with common sense or to make sure that it's intellectually consistent because the APA is saying it.
I don't think that we can come out and say common sense is our way of interrogation. Now, if you want to
common sense is a bit. May I rephrase?
But an appeal to common sense doesn't do that.
May I rephrase it? Instead of the term common sense, how about we say intellectual consistency?
Sure. If we feel like there's an inconsistency that some studies are being done poorly, or if we feel like the funding mechanisms are skewed or something, yeah, sure.
No, I'm not even talking about funding mechanisms. I'm saying if scientists say something, then we should be able to replicate it and make sure that it's intellectually consistent. Correct?
Replication gets hard the more abstract our science
That's true.
is. But sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
so
I
then we'll ask whether or not that what you're determining as disorders, mental illness, etc., seem to make sense intellectually consistent with what most of us would say seems to make sense in the real world. So you're saying that transgenderism is only a disorder, illness, or any synonymous term if it results in some sort of depression, physical harm to oneself, something like that. Is that a fair characterization?
I'm copying the APA's definition, yes.
Right. So they would say it's only an illness, and keep in mind, I'm not saying just mental illness, I'm saying illness in general. It's only an illness if the person is depressed, wants to do physical harm to themselves, etc., because those are characteristics of gender dysphoria, which is an illness. Is that a fair characterization? Mm-hmm. Okay, so based on that,
wait. Yes, I agree with you, but okay. I would like to re-say over and over again mental illness because psychologists, as far as I understand it, aren't in the business of diagnosing like physical ailment of like the body or whatever. That psychologists generally deal. Their domain is the mind, so we're talking mental illness.
Well, it's irrelevant to the point that I was making. I'm saying it's an illness.
No, it's super relevant. It's super relevant because the way that we define like a mental illness might be different than the way we define like an illness. So, for instance, a medical doctor might say, "Hey, you have a cold." Even if you're experiencing no symptoms, because we can actually define this at like a molecular level, or like a virologist might come in and say, oh, you're ill, even if you don't feel any symptoms. Whereas for mental illness, it seems like we identify those more based on symptoms than any type of underlying physiological condition, because we don't know how to or don't have the ability to measure those. We don't know what to look for. So that's why I'm drawing a distinction between like mental illness and like a physical illness.
But notice I never did. Notice I was careful the entire time to say that it's some form of illness, whether it be physiological or mental. That's why it's irrelevant to me.
If you're being careful to do that, I'm just telling you that that's why I'm asserting right now. I'm going to use the definitions that make the most sense given the domains of these two different scientific disciplines occupy.
But my point, my conjecture the entire time is that transgenderism is an illness. Whether it be physiological and body illness or a mental illness, I've been clear on this the whole time. I will admit,
I'm physiologically, but you have. I understand you're saying that, but in order for you to give me Rob's version of why transgenderism is an illness, you're gonna have to construct this whole other body of science because I don't know like by which framework I can analyze your question and agree with it.
We don't have to construct a body of scientists because we agree on the definitions of what transgenderism is. So we don't have to construct a body of evidence. If we could agree, again, you're deflecting to mental illness. If we could agree on what the definition of illness is, and if we could agree on what the definition of transgenderism is, then we're able to determine whether or not transgenderism meets that definition of illness. regardless of be it mental or physiological.
Why do you think this is a valid approach to this question?
Why isn't it a valid approach to the question? Because the central issue that we're just real quick, I promise I'll leave you finish. The central question is it acceptable whether or not for Amazon or places like that to be banning books that are critical of transgenderism as a form of illness, be it mental or otherwise, right? Saying that, so we need to differentiate whether or not it is a form of illness. Now, I know we agree that they have the legal right to do so. They have, but it's a bad thing, right? We both agree on that, but that's what makes that debate uninteresting. So we're having a point of contention here. The contention is the fundamental claim that it's some form of illness true or not? I'm contending that it is an illness. You're saying that it's not. So that's why it's relevant.
Your manipulation of different scientific fields to try to take definitions from one field and apply it to another is just not a valid approach to this.
So then,
stop. You can't. Wait, come.
Sure, I'm sorry.
Like 20 minutes, okay? You cannot take a definition from another scientific field and then try to hold other scientific fields to those same definitions and pretend like you're making any sort of coherent argument. It's completely incoherent. Medical doctors, as far as I'm aware, don't typically diagnose in the domain of the mind. Like usually you have to see like a specialized medical doctor, like a psychiatrist, or you have to see a non-medical doctor, like a psychologist, in order for these types of diagnoses. Like you're not going to go to like a general physician and they're going to say like, oh yeah, well, it looks like you have general anxiety disorder. Like I think they'll normally write you a referral to like a psychiatrist or somebody that's more equipped to analyze those things. And which is strange because you think, well, hold on, well, a medical doctor, a general practitioner should know like what an illness is. Well, no, because mental illnesses are something that exists under a scientific domain, right?
But I'm not doing that, right? I fully acknowledge that. Clearly, you're right.
Well, but right? You are, because you're trying to make like you're trying to take this idea of like what is an illness broadly speaking, and then you're trying to like ham-fist this into like how psychologists define like mental illness. When these things are totally different. Like a mental illness is like a behavior.
But I think he might have been saying that because of something like what Tiffany was saying earlier, which is why I asked that question earlier, because she called it a treatment. She specifically worded it like a treatment.
Exactly.
I don't talk about anything Tiffany said or claimed. Okay, those are totally separate. I don't deal in any of that.
But let me, if I may respond to you, Destiny. Sure, so here's the deal, right? I wasn't saying, like I explained right out of the gate what my definition was. I didn't mince words about it. I said something, a disorder or something wrong with your body physiologically or mentally that requires some sort of medical intervention. Right? That's what I said. You were like, well, that could be a diet that says that you require vitamins and things like that. No, I was never conflating. The difference is, just real quick, the difference is everyone was trying to say, mental illness. So we were talking about it in that frame, but I was clear the entire time that, and I said it in my opening statement. I said, whether it be a mental illness or a physiological illness, it is an illness. So I'm not the one saying, well, I'm
doesn't make sense to like require. Wait. When you say requires treatment, like that definition is just not. It's like, for instance, obesity is considered an illness, but you can't treat obesity.
Sure, you can. Diet, exercise, pills.
A diet? You think? Okay, then that means that literally every single thing in the world is an illness, Rob.
No, that's not true.
Every single thing in the world can be treated with something.
It's entire bullshit. And so this is the question I wanted to get to when I said, if you give me 5 minutes to question you. So your interpretation is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to straw man you. You say that it's not an illness. Transgenderism is not an illness if you could function perfectly acceptable in society. That's what you said, correct?
Without severe gender dysphoria, yeah.
Okay, so if I'm schizophrenic and I could function perfectly acceptably in society, I don't have an illness?
Schizophrenic is it's considered different. Hold on, let me check.
Yeah, it's different, right? Because whether or not something's an illness, it doesn't require on how well you could manage it. Well, you could exist in society as a perfectly normal person.
It specifically does.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Mental illnesses
are bullshit.
Okay.
Again, we're not talking about mental illness specifically. We're talking about whether or not something's an illness. Therefore, I could be diabetic, manage my diabetes even without medical intervention, and still function in society properly. That doesn't mean I don't have an illness. Like literally, we have Tiffany, which I didn't hear you disagree, say the brain shows up as being in the wrong body.
Stop. I'm going to mute you and ban. Stop. I'm not going to own anything Tiffany says.
Okay.
So stop. Don't try to throw
Then
things
let me
that she
ask
says
you:
at me,
do you
okay?
agree with Tiffany that there's
that was me the
scientific
first
evidence?
time.
I don't agree with anything Tiffany said. Don't throw her statements and try to attack
I'm
them.
not. I'm
and
asking
pretend
you a
you're getting
question.
answer, okay?
It seemed like a reasonable position. I had no reason to disagree with her.
I don't care. No, I don't agree with.
Let me take Tiffany's name out of it. Do you agree with the people that say that scientists have discovered that there is scientific evidence that show that the brain of a transgender person operates as if it was in the body of someone else?
That there seems to be preliminary research that says that.
That's
yes.
right. Okay, so let's take Tiffany's argument out of it. That would seem to suggest some sort of disorder or illness. I don't think that's a controversial statement. If your brain is not matching up with the physical body that you have, if your brain is physiologically not matching up with the body that you have, that is an illness or a disorder. Simple.
By what? Wait, what value do you get defining it as such?
Because the brain is operating as if it's in a different mechanism. That shows that there's something inaccurate
what is the value
going on.
that you get? What is the value that you get from that diagnosis?
Well, one, we get to... Well, first off, the value of it is irrelevant to the truth of it or not. Secondly,
no, that's
because
not true. The only reason diagnoses exist is for value, Rob.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
That's not bullshit. That's why do you
diagnosis
think medicine
exists?
And all this stuff exists?
Diagnosis exists rather on a basis of truth. That's why the diagnosis exists. It's not just medically. That's a diagnosis is a fundamental examination of something and the truth of that situation. That's what a diagnosis is. It being medical or not is irrelevant. So the value of the diagnosis is irrelevant. Second, there is value to the diagnosis, right? Because if there is a fundamental physiological difference between your brain and your body, then there's value in understanding that because it instructs you on possible treatments going forward. Even if you're depressed.
So you stumbled onto it, okay, at the end there, okay? So the reason why we have diagnoses, and it's debatable, because I know that some therapists will even debate on whether or not a diagnosis should be made, because it might inhibit a person's ability to get treatment. The reason why we make a diagnosis is because we understand that if we diagnose somebody in a certain way, it helps us find ways to treat some underlying condition. Sure. That's why a diagnosis exists. It's not any pursuit of truth or knowledge. That's totally has nothing to do with why a diagnosis is made. Diagnosis is typically made so that we can get people help for underlying conditions. So my question is the APA has separated out the idea behind gender dysphoria and behind being a trans person. If they find that there's more value in separating those things out and identifying somebody with gender dysphoria or severe gender dysphoria is more valuable than just broadly identifying all trans people as having a disordered identity, right? Why wouldn't we just accept the APA's definition? Like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like a trans person can exist. They don't necessarily have a mental disorder. And there are some people that experience gender dysphoria to a great extent, and these people probably need help.
Well, two reasons. One,
much
because
the same way that somebody like with body dysmorphia,
sure,
right, is going to be different than somebody that just happens to be overweight.
Yes, but it's the same thing. If your brain physiologically doesn't match up with the representation of your body, that's some sort of disorder. So there's two reasons why we shouldn't just appeal to the APA.
Wait, why is that a disorder?
No,
what about a kid? Oh, no, wait. I can't just have you define something and run away from it. Let's focus on this one
thing.
Okay. So when the brain has a mismatch, what about a person that really wants to be shredded or they fucking want to be like an anime character or something? Okay. Do you just say all these people have a disorder?
No. Wanting to be something's different than thinking your body doesn't match up with what your brain identifies your body as being. Yeah, if you look like me and you say, actually, I got a six-pack and I'm shredded, yes, I got a fucking illness. If I say I want to be shredded, that's not an illness.
Don't do that though. Wait. But trans people don't just think they have a dick or think they have a vagina. That's not how a trans person thinks.
No, they think that there is a biological reality to sex and that their brain is the biological reality opposite of what their body is exhibiting.
Yes.
Right.
But what is wrong with that understanding?
Because it's a disorder. It's something different. If as a big fat guy, real quick, let's use your example. So with your example, if I think I'm a shredded anime character, but I'm actually someone who's overweight like I am, there's something wrong. Okay, whether it be mental or physiologically, there's something wrong.
Let's just, Rob, it's not, Rob, we're not trying to dunk each other. I want to focus on this, okay? Just this particular thing, okay? My analogy is, let's say that you have a trans person, okay? So you have a male or we'll say we have a female mind and a male body, okay? You have a trans woman, okay? Mm-hmm. Their problem is that they feel as though they would more accurately be represented with secondary and primary female sexual characters. That's what they feel. This is a trans person, okay?
Okay.
Then let's take another person, okay, that is thinking like, man, like I might be overweight, but I feel like I feel like I should be shredded. I think I would look better. It would just make me feel so much better, right? That might be somebody that has like a difference in what they want their body to be.
Sure.
Now on the trans side, you might have somebody that says, my difference between what I want my body to be and what it is so severe, it's causing me extreme mental anguish that's preventing me from functioning on a day-to-day basis. And then hopping over to the kid that wants to be shredded, he might be overweight and it's affecting his image so severely, it's affecting his ability to have a day-to-day experience. That's the comparison between the two. So you can have a trans person, much like you can have a person with a different body image that isn't necessarily doesn't have an experience with mental illness. It's not inhibiting their ability to function in society. But there could be a trans person with dysphoria, the same way there could be an individual with dysmorphia, where their ability to function in society is inhibited. What's wrong with this analogy?
The problem with the analogy is you're misrepresenting the question, because trans people aren't people that want to be a different gender or a different sex. They're people that feel they are the different sex. So it's not a want.
No, okay, wait.
That's what's fundamentally different. I just gave you a chance to talk. So the difference is this: the person that wants to be shredded
everything you say, I'm going to focus on what you just said. So
okay, I don't give a fuck. You can ignore it.
Okay,
I try to give you the dignity of listening to what you're saying. So when you're talking about the person that's overweight and that wants to be shredded, that is a want. That's not the belief that I actually am shredded. The person that's transgender thinks I actually am a woman, even though my biology, my chromosomes, my sexual organs represent a man. That's what makes it an illness or a disorder. It's not want, it's the belief that you are. See, it didn't take long. I'm sure you ignored it, but go ahead.
Have you ever heard the distinction between gender identity and gender expression?
Yes.
Okay, so a trans person doesn't think that they have a male body, even if they're female, or a female body if they're male. A trans person feels like their brain is wired more to be that is in a contrary position to what their sex is.
Yes.
That's the trans brain. Yes?
That's a physiological or mental disorder or illness. Yes.
Okay, so here's my question for you. Okay. And so far, this seems to be what the preliminary science indicates. Now, it might be different in the future. Let's say that it comes out that trans women actually have like fully fucking female brains and trans men have fully fucking male brains. Would you at that point agree that, oh, wow, it's actually not an illness at all? Like they accurately identified that their mind is actually that of a sex that's different than their body. Would you agree with that, or would you still fight against this called a mental disorder?
No, it's proof that it is an illness. It might not be mental, but it's physiological then.
Wait, if they're accurately identifying the underlying fact of the matter, that they have a male body and a female brain, what part of that is an illness?
It's a fucking disorder or an illness. Your body, there's something wrong that your brain isn't matching up with the representation of your body. It's that simple.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to ask you one more time. Yeah, let's say that we knew that you could have a male brain and a female body. Do you think how is that a disorder?
Because there is something fundamentally wrong between the connection between the brain and the body.
Okay, when I'm asking you for these answers, right, you keep appealing to these phrases like common sense or fundamentally wrong or disorder. I understand that's how you feel. I'm trying to ask you why. Why do you feel like that is a disorder? Why do you feel like that's fundamentally wrong?
Do you think
accurately identify that you're a male brain and a female body?
Let's take a word. So you want to argue the semantics of disorder, illness. Do you think if there's
I'm not a semantic.
No. Who's this third person intervening? Like, I think me and Destiny are having a good conversation.
Okay, I'm not. This isn't a semantics argument. Okay. This is a fact of the matter. I'm trying to actually get at what you believe here, right?
Okay, what I'm getting at, what I believe is if you have a system that the operating system of it and the intelligence level of it thinks that it's in a body that's inaccurate, there's a problem. We call that problem a disorder, an illness, or something like that.
Okay, here's a question. Let's say that we are 20 years into the future, we have brain transplant surgery.
Sure.
Let's say that I take Rob's brain and I put it into a cis woman's body. Let's say that you wake up and you're like, this feels really wrong. I feel like I feel like a man and now I'm in a woman's body. Would you say that that's a disorder, that you have a disorder there?
I would say I have a disorder, an illness, or something that's wrong physiologically or mentally with my body, yes.
What is the disorder?
The disorder is that my brain is in the wrong body.
Okay, so what is the solution for that?
Put my brain in a body that more aligns with what my brain is.
Okay, you just stated exactly. Okay, I love you. You are the most trans-positive conservative I've ever argued with. So that is exactly
where have I ever showed that I'm trans-negative?
What you should do is need to make the body match what the brain says. So that's why we have things like hormone replacement therapy, sex reassignment surgery. It's to make the body match what the brain is experiencing. So what you just said is
right. But so again, like, where is this argument? Because I say that, and this is the exact argument that you're actually making my argument for me. So the reason that in addition to all the reasons you stated why banning these books is wrong, The fundamental reason, other than that, is that it's true. That if we're going to say that people require medical interventions to get into the body that they relate as, that's a medical issue. That's a disorder or illness. If we remove that and we say, no.
Rob, I agree with you.
Okay,
people that require, wait. People that require medical interventions in order to alleviate the dysphoria have a mental illness. It is called gender dysphoria.
Okay. So if I don't believe, so if I say, my brain's a female brain, but it's in a male body, but I don't want the surgery or the drugs, I don't have a disorder or an illness? That's wrong. I just am choosing to not get treatment for it. Such as if a schizophrenic person says...
Do you think that there's a fundamental difference between a guy that wants to kill himself because he's overweight versus a guy that's overweight and he recognizes, like, it's kind of unhealthy, but it's whatever? Do you think there's a difference between these two people, or are they...
Both have medical problems, though. Yes.
But they don't both have mental illnesses, right?
Again, you're conflating the term illness with mental illness.
Okay, I'm asking you. There's one guy, he wants to kill himself because he's overweight, and another guy is just, he's okay with overweight. Would you say the former has a mental illness and the second doesn't?
I would say yes. One has a physiological illness and the other has a physiological and mental illness.
Okay, so if a trans person doesn't experience extreme gender dysphoria and the other trans person does, wouldn't we say one of these people has a mental illness and the other doesn't necessarily have a mental illness?
One has a physical illness and the other has a mental and physical illness.
Okay, that's great if this is where we've got you, okay? So you agree
What do you mean where we got? This is where I started.
Isn't a mental illness. Now you're saying it's just a physical illness, correct?
This is where I started. It's an illness. You could call. I'm not scientific enough to understand.
Specifically, a physical illness, right?
Well, here's what I'll say about it. I don't know, right? You admit that being trans significantly could be a mental illness. What percentage of trans people do you think?
I'm saying that.
No. What percent? Just out of curiosity, you don't have to give me an exact, but if you had to guess, what percentage of trans people do you think experience gender dysphoria?
If I had to guess, I'm going to go ahead and peg it right at 50%.
I would say it's way more than that, but fair enough. I don't have proof of that. I would say that many trans people
I would say it's harder is because now we're seeing more and more people come out as trans as we become more accepting of it. It's entirely possible in the past that there were way more trans people, but they didn't really experience gender dysphoria, so they didn't make as huge a deal about it or kill themselves over it. So it's possible that the numbers are like really matched. So that's fine. Not be my way.
Okay, so let's start. Let's do this. Define gender dysphoria.
Hold on. Gender dysphoria is the anguish that arises from the difference between your gender identity and your sexual presentation.
Okay.
So if you feel as though you have the gender identity of a male, but your presentation, your primary and secondary sexual characteristics are female, then the anguish that results in the disconnect between those two things drives you to like depressive states of mind and inhibits your ability to function. That's gender dysphoria.
Would you admit to me, and maybe you won't, but I would say this, would you share my belief that the anguish is subjective?
Of course.
Okay.
I'll go a step farther and I'll say there might be some societies, potentially, where a person might be trans in this society, maybe in another society, maybe they wouldn't necessarily. Maybe the gender roles or maybe the configuration of male or female in a society is so different that maybe some people would. That's entirely possible, sure.
Okay, so then here's the problem. I don't understand how it's possible to be transgender without gender dysphoria, because anguish could be so subjective. For example, I'm someone who's overweight. I'm actually, though, I hope, I could be wrong, based on the fact that I have a newborn child, I have the best wife in the world, I'm a happy person. I don't feel like I'm depressed or suffer anguish from the fact I'm overweight. My problems with being overweight are more like sleep apnea, other problems, like physiological problems. But I don't know that I have mental anguish over it. But the fact that I know that I'm overweight and there's part of me that's concerned about it would be some small level of anguish, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know then how you could identify and saying my brain's in the wrong body, but I have no reservations whatsoever about that. How many trans people do you legitimately think that's the case of?
Wait, I didn't get the step here. So in terms of you having like a little bit of discomfort.
Right, that's like, anguish. That would be
a therapist wouldn't identify that as being a mental illness, right? There are more specific criteria. So my understanding is that generally speaking, when it comes to mental illness, criteria are going to be like, can you hold down a job? Do you take care of yourself, right? Do you wash yourself? Be able to maintain an apartment? And then do you have like relationships, or are you unable to form and maintain friendships?
But that's not the definition you read. That's not the definition you read.
No, this is generally, yes, the definition of like most mental illness. Yeah, I think.
Let's go back. Reread the definition of gender dysphoria. Reread what you said. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to burden you to
diagnostic criteria, gender dysphoria. All right, I'll go check it.
Okay.
Psychiatry.org.
Damn, I wish I had more water. I actually have running city water. I could get some.
The DSM-5 defines gender dysphoria in adolescents and adults as a marked incongruence between one's experienced/expressed gender and their assigned gender, lasting at least 6 months, as manifested by at least two of the following. A marked incongruence between one's experienced/expressed gender and primary and or secondary sexual characteristics. Hold on. Sorry.
No problem.
A strong desire to be rid of one's primary and or...
This is a different definition, though, right? Just asking.
What?
It's
No,
fine,
no,
it's
this
fine.
isn't... I'm sorry. This isn't the definition. These are the diagnostic criteria.
Okay.
You are, I'm sorry, my bad. Because I thought we were, because what I'm telling you in terms of like not being able to hold down a job, this is how people diagnose these.
Well, I just
illnesses.
asked because I asked you for a definition and you read one, and this is different. I don't mind that. That's fine. I just wanted to clarify for my own.
Well, I can give you the definition. It's up a few paragraphs if you want. I'm sorry. The term transgender refers to a person whose sex assigned at birth, i.e., the sex assigned by a physician at birth, usually based on external genitalia, does not match their gender identity, i.e., one psychological sense of their gender. Some people who are transgender will experience gender dysphoria, which refers to psychological distress that results from an incongruence between one's sex assigned at birth and one's gender identity. There you go.
Okay, so how do you experience, so according to that definition, how can you be transgender and not experience an incongruence from one's assigned sex at birth, but the way you identify?
I mean, how can one person be overweight but not experience gender dysmorphia?
No, that's not the question.
Dysmorphia.
That's not the question. It seems the central position of being transgender is that you feel there's an incongruence with what your brain thinks with what your body represents. That seems to be
But not every incongruence causes a great distress to you.
But again, the definition...
right? The mental anguish, Rob, mental anguish can be subjective, right? I might get a school paper back and I get a C and that's fine. And the guy next to me might get a B and he might want to kill himself, right? Like people experience things in different ways, right?
That's absolutely true. But the definition you just read to me didn't talk about levels of anguish. It said experiencing an incongruence.
But
this is how we interrogate. You ask me, how do we interrogate?
Just to be clear, it says refers to psychological distress. Okay,
Read the
mental
sentence
anguish.
you just read. Read the sentence you just read. You just read a paragraph and you said transgender is X, gender dysphoria is X. Read that again.
The term transgender refers to a person whose sex assigned at birth does not match their gender identity. Some people who are transgender will experience gender dysphoria, which refers to psychological distress that results from an incongruence between one's sex assigned at birth and one's gender identity.
Okay, so I will admit that the term distress is what we're hinging this on then.
Sure, but if
because
we
you
go down
would
to the
admit,
diagnostic criteria, we can probably figure out what.
But let's hammer down on it. You would admit that every trans person experiences this incongruence, the second part of the definition, correct?
I think by definition, the incongruence is what it means to be a trans person.
Right.
Yes.
So now we're saying that the key difference between gender dysphoria and just transgender is merely having distress. So again, we use the term anguish
exactly
before.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
we used the term anguish before. Now we're using the term distress. Right? Would you admit,
okay, hold on. Just to be clear, if you want it, you said you have a master's in English. You're playing semantics games now.
I don't have a master in English. I will say that
yes, now I'm using distress instead of anguish, but I believe that these words are corollary to one another.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree.
In my position, but
listen. First off, my master was in speech communication. Second, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to.
Okay, so yes, we are using distress now, but anguish, I believe, is a
that's
good
fair.
synonym for distress.
Yes, I agree with that. I'm not trying to.
Okay,
that's not what I'm trying to do, right? But I'm saying that's the defining term. You have to experience some sort of anguish or distress. So that's where my question comes into effect. And I'm glad you agreed they're synonymous because I think it helps my position more. You've already admitted that the mere fact that I say, I should lose some weight is the definition of some, albeit small, level of anguish, correct?
Not correct, no.
Okay, so then how would you define distress or anguish?
It's a discomfort that arises from a thought.
Okay, so you would argue that only 50% of trans people have a discomfort from rising from the thought that their brain's in the wrong body.
Okay, hold on. That number is a complete and total guess. I have no fucking idea. I'm not going to let you beat me over the head with that number. You asked me to give you a guess. I have no fucking idea. I don't know.
Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I'm not holding you to that number specifically, but I'm trying to argue that that's the overwhelming majority of trans people. That's what I'm saying. I don't give a shit if it's 50% or 50%.
I don't know.
No. It certainly is. Like it, and this is what.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that, Rob. You don't know.
Well, but this is what I'm talking about: the denial of common sense and the denial. And like I understand you say, well, common sense can't be defined, but we understand.
I'm gonna make an. Hold on, real quick, because you keep doing this. So I'm gonna tell you why common sense doesn't work. Okay, so I personally, I don't have a very strong identity with my gender. I don't really give a fuck if I'm a man or a male or if I was a woman or a female. Honestly, in terms of how I view myself, it really doesn't make much of a difference to me. I don't strongly identify as being male. Now, as of recently, I've come out and I've said that I'm non-binary because it gives me a lot of armor on Twitter and because technically that makes me trans. So I can't be transphobic anymore, okay?
I don't blame you.
However, I think that is an accurate summary of how I relate to my particular gender identity. Now, it is possible, and because I am non-binary, that's technically a subset of trans, right? So I am considered a trans person. Now, it is possible. Now, I don't feel any fucking anguish or any dysphoria over whether or not somebody calls me male or somebody thinks I'm fucking female or woman. That's just something I just don't really care about. It is entirely possible that there are a lot of other people that feel that way. And they might even be trans women or other non-binary people that just don't have that strong of a dysphoric feeling related to their gender identity. Now, if that's the case, now going on my personal experience and going on common sense, it's totally possible that there are way more non-binary people out there or even trans people that just don't feel so strongly attached to their gender identity or expression that they have anguish or distress over it. That's why I gave you 50%. It might be that that number is way high. Maybe it's like 90% of trans people experience it. And it might be that that number is actually way lower. It might actually be 10 or 15%. Maybe the human mind is more fluid than that. And maybe only a few people get super hung up. I don't know. That's why I literally guess 50% because I have no fucking idea.
Okay. So there's a lot to say about this. First off is we understand that under this definition, and I understand you've already said this, then the argument that trans women are women is totally bullshit. You would agree with it?
I agree. I already said that. I think it's a dumb sentence.
That's fair. So I'm glad to at least get that admission. Secondly, that's different. You feeling that you're
non-admission. That has always been my position.
Okay, but that's fair. I don't I know we've had a few interactions. I don't watch all of your positions.
When you say I'm glad I got you to admit that, you're making it sound like I'm giving you ground or whatever. I've always had this opinion.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you said that you were glad that you got me to admit that it was an illness, not a mental illness, which has always been my position. That
because
I don't know
because now we're narrowing the argument. You seen before.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We're narrowing. Right. That's exactly what I'm saying in this situation with you. We're narrowing the argument. Secondly, you claiming to be trans, or claiming to be non-binary gender is different than what we colloquially understand as transgender. Again, you've already read the definition of transgender, which is believing that you're in a body, your brain is in a body that doesn't represent the physical manifestation of what your gender is. I actually think the term transgender is actually a misnomer. If you ask most trans people, I believe the actual physical term would be transsexual, because gender is something that we're able to say is societally constructed. I think it's a bullshit semantic argument, but fair enough. That's the way it's defined. Gender is semantically constructed, but sex is biologically accurate. So the overwhelming majority.
Okay. I don't.
Go ahead.
Okay. Let's back up and define some things. Okay. So transsexual, I think, is just a deprecated term. I don't think anybody uses transsexual anymore.
I know it feels like an insult. I agree.
Well, I mean, we can call it, but I'm just saying the term is deprecated. I don't think it gives us a good idea of what does transsexual even mean? It's
more accurate.
Transgender seems to express an idea. What?
I think transsexual is more accurate to what most transgender people actually believe.
Okay, I guess you can feel that, but if you literally, everyone's going to be confused by what you're saying.
Okay, is the difference between sex that sex is biological reality and gender is a social construct? Would you agree with that?
No, but I don't know how much I want to fight on the philosophy, so I guess I'll say yes for now.
Okay, well, but fair enough.
I will say that I will admit that I'll say that sex broadly refers to two categories that have some underlying fact of the matter, some underlying features that seems to be encompassed by male and female. I agree with that. Yes.
Okay, so I think that most transgenders feel that they're in actuality transgender. Right, that they feel that there is a biological denial of a difference between what their brain and their body experiences. So therefore, that's not transgender. Like, you could be transgender. I could be transgender. I could say physiologically my brain and my genitalia and my chromosomes match up, but I don't agree with the societal construct that I'm a male. I think that I'm non-gender binary, or
but it might literally be the disorder might actually be not being trans though. If you have a female brain in a male body, how is you acknowledging that biological reality? How is that a disorder? Wouldn't it be if you were suppressing that reality? Wouldn't that be the disorder? Is pretending
no, that would be a mental disorder as far as as opposed to a physiological disorder. Having a brain that identifies you, having the chromosomes of one sex while experiencing the genital or the mental capacities of the other sex is something wrong. There's something wrong. I think that semantically we could call it an illness or a disorder, but there's there's something wrong.
I don't necessarily. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possibly we could call that. But then if that's true, then we're gonna run down the other rabbit hole we went to, where you're saying like, okay, well, this needs to be treated, and how we treat it by making the body. We make the body match the mind.
Well, I certainly agree with that. I think that if there's biological evidence that your mind's exhibiting criteria of the other sex, that yes, that possibly, I'll be fully honest here. I'm not a medical expert. So I don't know what the best treatment would be, but certainly that seems like a credible argument that if your mind, the mind is you, basically, your mind is who you are. And so if it's exhibiting the patterns of being in a body that's different, and I don't mean just, I feel like that, but literally biologically it's experiencing different patterns, then I think that it would be a reasonable treatment to try to make the body match the mind as opposed to make the mind match the body. I think that's reasonable.
Okay, then I don't know then is where we really just hung up on what we're calling an illness.
Right, but that's the point, right? Because we're
Wait,
literally.
So you agree with so then just curious. So then let's say that we had a brain scan that could identify female brain, male brain, 100%. Let's say trans people go into this lab, boom, they get identified. Oh, cool. I'm in a male body, I have a female brain. You're fully on board with okay, well, hormone replacement therapy, sex reassignment surgery, this is what gets the brain to match the body, and then these people are good. This is a good treatment for this.
Yes, now listen, I will give a brief caveat here. That science needs to exist and be proven. But yes, if that science exists and be proven, I would have no problem with that whatsoever, at all.
Okay, so then your issue is just that merely stating that a brain doesn't match a body, that in and of itself is an illness, even if the person doesn't experience any type of distress or anguish related to that.
That's exactly right. And that's why I think that it's dangerous to censor books that are talking about it being an illness, because it is an illness.
Would you say that for instance, being gay or being a lesbian, would you say that these are mental illnesses?
No.
Why not?
Because they have to do with sexual preferences and not saying that your brain physiologically doesn't match the biology of your body.
Okay, but they physiologically match something. They would match the physiology of a trans person, right? But
no, they wouldn't. Being gay doesn't. That's an absurd statement. Being gay doesn't match the physiologically of being a trans person at all. It's completely two different things.
Sure, but we have these underlying physiological purposes to breed, right? To have children, right? Why wouldn't you say that a gay person has a mismatch here in this drive, which is a form of illness?
Because sex isn't a drive strictly for procreation. Right? That's not what it is. It's also a drive for personal enjoyment and pleasure and things like that.
Well,
and
sure, that's a byproduct of it, but the most important part is reproduction, right?
But that doesn't matter what the most important part is. That's like saying people have a mental disorder that masturbate. Well, no, it's because it deploys endorphins and a physiological sensation that's deemed pleasurable for the person doing it, right? Your preference, you're not an illness for being gay or for being lesbian any more that you'll be an illness for preferring gingers or for preferring dark-skinned people or preferring people with beards. These are just sexual preferences. They're not physiological reality. Because it's a difference. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wait, why would you have an illness then for preferring that your body look a different way?
It's not preferring your body look a different way. That's elective. That's totally different. That's not what trans people believe. They don't prefer that their body look a different way. They sincerely believe that their brain cognitively doesn't match up with the sex of their biological reality.
You keep calling that an illness. Okay, we have to come on. You keep saying that they believe this thing, and you're trying to make it sound like that belief might be wrong. But I've already granted, and you've already granted me that belief may in fact be correct. If that belief is correct,
right? I'm operating on
the problem with them.
So real quick, let me say two things. If the belief's incorrect, then they have a mental illness. If the belief's correct, they have a physiological illness. If their brain literally is not matching up with the body that they're represented in, that's a physiological illness. That's different than preferring a particular person for sex. That's completely different.
Okay, so let's say that you're overweight and you desire to go to the gym to bring your body more in line with what you would want your body to look like. Would you say that person has an illness that they're treating with diet and exercise?
No, it's not a deal of want. That's where you're fundamentally misunderstanding this issue. Trans people don't feel I want to be a woman. If you're a trans man, if you're a man who wants to be a trans woman, trans people feel I am a woman. That's different than a want.
Okay, we're obfuscating. They say I am a woman. They're saying that I have the identity of a woman.
Right.
My mind is a woman.
Okay.
Not the body.
Their brain is a woman. People that are overweight aren't saying, I actually have the brain of a physically fit person and my body doesn't match up with it. They're saying, hey, I would like to get in shape. That's different.
Well, no, that's the exact same thing. So
no, it's not.
A person with a body that's overweight might say, I don't feel like my identity is being overweight. I don't like this identity, so I'm going to take steps to change it, to bring it more in line with how I see myself. Right? Why wouldn't a trans person be able to do something similar? I have the mind of a man, I'm in a woman's body. Maybe I can take actions in order to bring my body more in line with what my mind would want to see myself as.
Because it's not an issue of want. They truly believe that their brain, or I don't want to get like spiritual, but they believe their brain or their spirituality, their soul is that of the opposite sex of what they identify as. That would be like a fat person saying, I truly believe I'm a skinny person. I truly believe it. I look in the mirror and I'm a skinny person.
And I feel like maybe we're just stuck here at this. This is our epistemic ground zero. You keep making these analogies, and it seems to be that because in order for this analogy to work, a trans person has to be mistakenly identifying.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
Yeah, because you keep saying that an overweight person feels like they actually are like somebody that's ripped or something. Like a trans person doesn't believe that they actually have the body of the person that they're like trans.
Okay, let me ask you this, and if you believe that, do you think that like someone like me, an overweight person, if I think I'm actually skinny, I have the brain of a skinny person?
If you think no, I would say there's a problem because you're not actually skinny.
Right, and you're not actually a man if you think you're a man and you're a woman. Your brain might be that of a woman.
No. So you keep trying. So what you're doing is you're sneaking this in. So you're saying like, well, they're not actually a man. But when you say man, there's two halves to this: gender identity and gender expression, or gender identity, in the way that they like present their gender presentation, right? You keep trying to say, well, they're not actually this when you mean one, but you've already like admitted the other. So like, yes, they know, like a trans person doesn't believe that they actually have a different body. They just feel like they have a different mind. So they want to change the body to match the mind.
No, they believe that literally, you heard Tiffany talk about this. They believe that their brain literally is the brain of the person with the biological reality that doesn't match the biological reality of their sexual organs and chromosomes.
But that brain could exist, but that we've already admitted that could be the case. You might have a
That could
brain.
be the case, and it's still a disorder or an illness. There is no fat person that has the brain that biologically represents as that of a skinny person. That doesn't exist. There are fat people that say, I would like to be skinny.
I'm just saying that like, if we see ourselves in a certain way in society and we take steps to like alleviate that, we wouldn't necessarily say the person is disordered or ill because they take steps to like bring that congruence into existence.
Well, we would say that it's not a mental illness. We would say that there is a disorder of physiological reality that's an illness, being overweight.
All right, Rob. All right. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I don't know. I don't know. If there's nothing you want to talk about, I guess I could leave. Let me ask you this, if you don't mind, on a personal note.
Yep.
Like,
go quick, because I got to leave. Go for it.
Oh, well, if you got to leave, we talk about it some other time. That's fair. I just want to say this. I have no hard feelings to you at all. I know we disagree in everything, but I don't have any hard feelings. So thanks for talking with me, I guess. That's all.
All right. Have fun, Robbie.
Yep,
Bye.
take it easy.